'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. Kink out, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the brown. Ding dong, call me on my phone, nice tea and I'll get my ping pong. This is getting heavy, can't hear the bass, boom, I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat chain like money. This go all alone, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm diamond, you know I glow up. Hey, so let's go. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight, so watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa.
Listening to that song all day long. Thank you so much for joining us on this education live stream presented by the Asian Community Development Council. If you haven't heard of ACDC before, you have not joined us here on the education live stream, welcome. This is a weekly show that we put together. ACDC is a nonprofit agency here in Las Vegas, Nevada, that aims to educate, connect, and empower the Asian American Pacific Islander community throughout the state of Nevada. And we really, just want to talk about different topics that appeal to this community. And of course, BTS is definitely one of them. And I think it's such a timely subject right now, especially because we have a local expert on this band and on BTS Army and fandom right here in Las Vegas. So I want to introduce you to my guest today. So we have Nicole Santero with us, and we also have some of the fans, Nicole Santos and Jaewon Jung, who are all here, based here in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, Nevada in the US, also a center of, a lot of fans of BTS as well. So we're going to get to Nicole and Jaewon in just a bit. But first, I want to introduce a short introduction of Nicole Santero, who is a current PhD student at UNLV, so a local college here in Las Vegas. She's also behind the Twitter account. If you're a BTS fan, you probably know this and follow this Twitter account called Research BTS, where she shares news, insights, and data into this music group and its fandom. She's also the communications director of UNLV School of Public Health. Nicole, I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you so much for coming on and joining us. You're also a good friend of ACDC. So first, I know very few people, probably 1% of the population out there, don't know who BTS is. So tell us about BTS and how you even got to know this band.
Yeah, so for those who don't know who BTS is, they're from South Korea, and they're currently the biggest band in the world right now, breaking lots of barriers in music. They debuted in 2013, and their popularity has just continued to grow, especially in these last few years. And 2020 was kind of their biggest year yet. They were named Time Magazine's Entertainer of the Year. They just released their newest album, B, which was their latest #1 album. They've broken so many records, including the most viewed music video on YouTube for 24 hours for their song Dynamite. It got over 100 million views in its first 24 hours. And of course, we have to mention that BTS just became the first Korean group to be nominated for a Grammy. So it's a really exciting and historic time for them. We can't obviously talk about BTS without their large, loyal, and passionate fan base army. These are fans who really believe in BTS and what they stand for, and are doing everything they can to show the world why they should get the credit they deserve. So I got into BTS in 2018, so not too long ago. I'd always kind of been ignorant when it came to K-pop and didn't quite get why people would listen to something that they didn't understand. But I saw them performing at the Billboard Music Awards and thought that, I was just so confused, but also amazed to see an Asian group on such a mainstream stage like that. So it piqued my curiosity and started listening to their music and fell into the so-called BTS rabbit hole and decided to do research on them and their fandom.
And now your research actually as part of your thesis, right? You're doing this part of your research work at University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's part of my PhD dissertation. I'm specifically interested in the culture and the social structure of BTS fans. BTS itself has had such an amazing impact, not only on the music industry, but our society in the world. And just as powerful as BTS themselves is their fandom. And when I was a master's student, actually, I studied the One Direction fandom. So I'd always been interested in this area and what makes fans so powerful, especially through social media. And so ever since I got into BTS and became a fan myself, I knew that there was something special there. And I've been passionate about helping to tell the story about BTS and ARMY, like many others as well, and what makes them such an influential force. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned, it's just pretty. I mean, I got to know, or really gotten to know BTS, when Dynamite came out. You said what their first full English language song, and really probably one of my favorite songs now. And I never really listened to any Korean band, so that has to say something. And now they're named Times 2020 Entertainer of the Year. I know you've been cited by the magazine as well, and people have been reaching out to you as kind of a local expert now, when it comes to BTS because of all the research you've done. I mean, what does it mean for the Asian American community? I know we've had such a Korean invasion in some way, right? With Parasite, the movie, with all these K-dramas that we're watching on Netflix, and now BTS has really kind of shaped the way that Americans or even the world think about Korean culture.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show why representation is so important, right? We've never really seen Asian artists on this big of a stage like this before. I mean, these are guys who speak and sing primarily in Korean, yet are dominating the music industry. It's pretty incredible. I mean, like I said, when I first saw them, I was just so intrigued by it, and as an Asian American myself who hadn't really embraced my own culture, they've allowed me to do that and embrace my identity. And of course they've opened the door for even greater opportunities for Asians in media and entertainment. But on top of that, through their music and messages, they sing and speak about issues that are often stigmatized in the Asian community, right? Like things like health and personal struggles, societal pressures, etc. So I think it's so important for Asians, especially young people in our community, to see BTS open about these things and okay with talking about these kinds of topics. So overall, they're just overcoming a lot of barriers we've never really seen artists face before, but they're showing that music does have this ability to transcend language. And there's, of course, still a long way to go. And there's obstacles faced because of, xenophobia and racism in this industry and even in society in general. But I think BTS is a start and definitely changing the game for all of us.
And it's such a breakthrough in so many ways. But I think what's really impacted me about the ways that they're really kind of creating a change here is because of what we're going through this year, right? With the COVID-19 pandemic and how their music is aimed at helping to kind of ease that pain and that fear for a lot of people. So talk to us a little bit about that, about how their music has helped in that end.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this year has been so challenging for everyone, but BTS has done a really great job finding ways to maintain that connection with their fans and, letting fans know that they're not alone in this. They themselves have been pretty transparent about their own struggles during this pandemic. So, and it's also cool that many fans have found BTS and became what we call in the fandom quarantine armies. Many talk about how BTS has helped them during this pandemic and how they've become a source of comfort and hope, right? So on top of holding online virtual concerts, they've released music specifically because of this time and what we're going through. As you mentioned, their huge hit Dynamite was actually created specifically because of COVID-19 as BTS wanted to uplift fans and give them strength during this time. And their latest album, B, which came out in November, was kind of almost like this letter to ARMY about their own thoughts and feelings as they navigate life during this pandemic. And I remember when this album came out, so many fans collectively were describing it as this emotional and warm hug that they all needed, right? And their single Life Goes On even talks about how, you know, the world may have stopped, but we have to continue moving forward and staying hopeful about the future. So, you know, this idea of it's all going to be okay, and there'll be better days to come is really a lot of people.
And just reading your work, what I found kind of interesting is when, you know, people who may not know, you know, a lot about K-pop or BTS, when they think of fandom or BTS fandom or their fans, they think of like young, screaming teenage girls, but that's not always accurate, right? They have fans kind of span the spectrum when it comes to people who support this band.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a definite stereotype and misconception when it comes to fandoms, especially K-pop fandoms and BTS fans who, you know, really have showcased their diversity. You know, they come from every part of the world. They're of different backgrounds, different cultures, different races, gender identities, and their age range spans. Like you have young kids who love BTS to even people in their 60s and 70s. So, you know, their music has really resonated with so many people.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I think it might be a good time to bring in some BTS fans. I know we wanted to bring in Lauren Sita Santos and Jaewon Jung. Lauren Sita, let me start with you. And I know you're a fan just because of all the pictures behind you. So there's no doubt you love BTS. So talk to me about when you started listening to them. So you're 21 now, but it's been a while that you've been a fan of BTS, right?
Yeah, I've been into BTS since I was 14 during the War on Hormone era. And I got into them because they were doing a collaboration with another K-pop group that I like, which was Block B. So yeah, I've been into BTS for a very long time.
And you're Filipina. You don't speak Korean. You don't know Korean, right? Or are you studying Korean as we speak? I mean, what kind of got you into this? And has your perspective about this band changed over the years from when you were 14 till now?
Yeah, first I'm not studying Korean. A lot of the time I don't know the lyrics until I have to look at translations afterwards. But originally I was only into the group because, you know, they're good dancers, in my opinion. They're great dancers, they're great singers. And over the years, I've seen them develop into this crazy phenomenon that has revolutionized the K-pop industry. And I'm just really glad that I've been fans of them for such a long time.
Yeah. Any of your favorite songs? Like, well, what is it that kind of stands out? Or, you know, if people were coming to you for the first time, what should I be listening for? I mean, what do you recommend to people?
My favorite song is Home. It was in their Persona album, I believe. And that's just, the song is really amazing. It actually has like both Spanish, English, and Korean in it. It's a big multicultural song, and it's great.
No, that's great. And, you know, Lauren Sita is Filipina. Jaewon was born in Korea. I know you moved to the US when you were pretty young, but the impact of you know, BTS and K-pop in general, you've kind of grown up with that. So talk to me about when, you know, now that you're, you know, as an adult looking back, how has it changed and how has BTS kind of changed this culture for you?
Yeah, I remember when I was in middle school and some of the first K-pop, or I wouldn't say first K-pop, but some of the popular K-pop groups of that time came out, like Wonder Girls and Big Bang. And I was, you know, like listening to it at school, but everyone was like, why is she listening to Korean music at school? But now I look around, I go to K-pop concerts, I don't even see any Korean fans there. It's like all fans of different races. And I think that's just amazing. It just goes to show what a global phenomenon K-pop has really become.
And you were saying that, you know, it's worth mentioning the girl groups that are out there because you listened to a lot of girl groups, especially in the beginning too, right?
Yeah, I remember some of my favorite ones in the beginning were Wonder Girls, and Girls' Generation and 21. I don't really know the groups today, but I remember those were my groups from middle school.
Yeah. So Nicole, I mean, is this kind of what you're, you know, just hearing what Jaewon has to say and Lauren Sita, you know, just kind of span of fans all over, just kind of all spectrum, right? And you feel like groups have been influenced by BTS now, especially what you're seeing out there?
In terms of other K-pop groups?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure. I think we're looking at a new generation of K-pop groups coming around, and a lot of them do look up to BTS. So, you know, and not even just K-pop, right? I think they're definitely revolutionizing the music industry, and a lot of people out there look up to them. I mean, they're just so polished as a group in general, not just as Koreans, but you know, they're great performers, great singers overall. And so I think a lot of people see them as inspiration for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, if you're all watching right now on our Facebook page on ACDC, the Asian Community Development Council, just joining us, just want to let you know we're having a conversation, a great fun conversation today about BTS, this band that just took over the world in some way, right? They were named Time's 2020 Entertainer of the Year this year. They're the first Korean group nominated for a Grammy. They're the fastest group to earn 5 #1 albums since the Beatles. I did not know this fact. This was pretty amazing. And, you know, we have Nicole Santero with us today. She is actually a Las Vegas resident, but she is actually kind of known all over the world now because of her Twitter account, Research BTS, in which she shares all her news and insights and data about this band. And talk to us about this Twitter account, because you've been probably you get to interact with people around the world through this account, right?
Yeah. You know, I created this Twitter account not with any intention to become like anything big or whatnot. I figured I wanted to track some sort of data and keep an archive and information. And so I thought it would be fun to create a Twitter account and just put things on there. I had no idea it would become what it is now, but you know, I'm super grateful for how social media has given me the opportunity to connect with so many fans and interact with them, and also find other researchers like myself. Because you know, for a long time, I didn't really know people who did similar research and had similar interests and passions like me. So I've been able to meet amazing people who love BTS, but also love, you know, telling BTS and ARMY's story. And, you know, a lot of us kind of aim to paint this more accurate picture about BTS and their fans.
And talk to me about, and I think that brings up an important point, because there is a difference, right? And the fans will tell you this, that between K-pop fans and BTS fans or BTS ARMY. So talk to us about the differences there and why people feel so strongly about this.
Yeah, I think, you know, especially with fandoms, a lot of people in general public tend to group fans and generalize them. But, you know, we all know fandoms are not a monolith. They're all different. They operate differently. They like different things. And so it's important that we recognize them for their individual uniqueness and what makes them each special.
And Lauren Sita, I know you're a longtime fan of BTS. Talk to me a little bit about the impact it has on you, because I know you've gotten into different kind of organizations and clubs in college as well, right? Where BTS has had an impact there.
Yeah, I actually got into dancing because of BTS. I was in Urban Dance Club when I was in college, and one of their subunits was the K-pop unit. I actually did a cover with 6 other people of BTS Idol in front of the school in their multicultural fair. So I've really gotten into BTS, and I've made so many friendships because of BTS.
And I just wanted to ask you about this, you know, growing up as an Asian American here in this country, and just having BTS kind of so big as it is now, just been your passion for so long, but now that so many people around the world getting to know this band, getting to know, you know, Korean Americans, more Asian American culture, how does that feel to you as a young person? I mean, is it a source of pride, or what are you feeling right now about their popularity and how it has impacted, you know, the culture here in the US?
Well, I remember when I was in middle school, and I was kind of into Girls' Generation, but it was kind of frowned upon, especially because no one was really listening to K-pop, and they thought it was kind of weird for listening to K-pop. But I'm glad that the stigma has kind of slowly dwindled as K-pop and BTS have become just a huge phenomenon.
And, you know, that kind of reminds me, you guys have probably seen a commercial on TV of Samsung. Did you see that one where there's a teenage girl, you know, listening to her new headphone, and she's white, but she's listening to BTS song. And I think that kind of speaks to the way that, this culture is now, is that it becomes multicultural. It's not just Asian Americans listening to K-pop bands or to BTS, but a whole generation of young people. So Jaewon, how do you feel about that? I mean, you're kind of in between, cultures. You were born in Korea, but you've grown up here. You speak fluent Korean. So talk to me about the impact and how you felt about that. Because I know when we're talking about other cultural, movement, like Parasite, for example, when it won the Oscar for Best Movie of the Year this year, so many, not just Koreans, but Asian Americans, including me, were very proud of that, to see Asian American art being accepted. What are your thoughts, Jaewon?
Yeah, I remember growing up in Central Jersey where I was like the only Korean in school. Everybody just constantly came up to me and like told me I was Chinese, or if I told them I was Korean, they'd be like, "No, you're not Korean." Like people didn't know what Korea was. Like they didn't even recognize it as a country. But now just seeing how much progress we've made to get all of this cultural recognition. It means a lot to me as a Korean American.
Yeah, and not just BTS, I'm sure other artists out there, Asian American artists, we've seen like Crazy Rich Asians came out as a movie that's being, and Simu Liu, the first Marvel superhero, that movie is going to have a bunch of Asian actors in it. So Nicole, this must be something I'm sure you talk about in your research as well. It's kind of a bigger phenomenon than just BTS, but they're really one of those people that just stand out in this cultural shift, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked earlier about what they mean in terms of Asian representation, but I think it's important also to talk about why they're so popular, because they've really distinguished themselves. And they're known for writing their own songs and singing about their personal stories and themes and messages that resonate so deeply with a lot of people. And they don't sound like anyone else and haven't really tried to be anything else but themselves, right? They aren't confined to one particular genre either. So, if you want to get into BTS, there's songs for people who love hip hop and R&B, ballads, soul, EDM, rock, rap, so forth, right? So they're defying stereotypes and changing perceptions of what people think of boy bands, especially here in our Western music industry. And this is a group that has become more than just a band to their fans, right? They represent hard work and courage and hope and this idea of not giving up. And so there's something really powerful and special about that for people who have come to love BTS.
And so people have never, and I think, Nicole, you might be a good person to ask about this. If they're brand new, they've never heard of BTS, they want to learn more. What are some of the songs or maybe albums they should check out, and why? And kind of what is it about that music that you think people should check out and learn more about this band?
Yeah, I mean, I think I usually recommend for those here, especially in Las Vegas, we all know Steve Aoki here. And so if you want to get a starter on BTS, definitely look into BTS's Mic Drop remix. And it's Steve Aoki's remix. So it's a great start. But like I said, I think people come in and they think of BTS as just a normal boy band or just a normal K-pop band, and they already kind of have these preconceived notions of what it's going to be. But if you give it a chance, it's I'm sure it'll blow people's mind, the way it did with me, right? I mean, I mentioned I didn't previously listen to K-pop before and didn't really have an interest, but kind of gave it a chance, and I'm glad I did, and it's kind of opened my mind to be more accepting and open to these different things.
No, I think it's great. And Lauren Sita, just looking at all the pictures behind you of all the band members, any one of your favorites, or what is it about? Are there certain members that you like more than others?
Well, my favorite member of BTS is actually Namjoon, who's the leader. He's my favorite because he's very well spoken. Especially one of the things that I was impressed at is that he's spoken at the United Nations twice, and I'm just really impressed with his activism beyond just K-pop.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. And I'm learning all these things about this band that I've never known before, which is great, and I think that, when people just kind of get a different perspective, especially with these guys are so young, like they're 23, 24, 25, so still pretty young, and the impact they're having. And Jaywan, I know we were talking earlier, I mean, there are other Korean artists out there who are making an impact as well. I remember, Psy was big at one point, right? So there are other Korean artists out there. And they've had an impact on you as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of Korean artists, as we mentioned, Psy, who's not really active in the U.S. anymore, but he's made such a huge impact in America, and seeing how much people know his name here. Like everybody knows his name here. I think that alone is just huge in Korea.
Yeah, no. And Nicole, where do you see this going? I mean, obviously there have been artists, coming out from Korea. The BTS kind of stand on its own here. And now it seems like they got all the accolades, but what do you feel this band is going to be going like 5 years from now? What do you see as the future of BTS at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a question that a lot of people are thinking about. How long can BTS and especially their fan base sustain themselves? But they've gotten so powerful and so influential that I think if there's any group and fan base that's going to keep going, it's probably going to be them. So I'm really excited to see what more they come out with, and see especially this fan base who's just so influential and so organized, just to see what else they do. So,
and you've never met this band or members of the band yet, right? Yet.
No.
So
I've it a few times, but yeah.
Well, so if you do get to meet them in person, and I know you studied journalism in college, what would be the question? What would you want to ask this band?
Oh man, I trying to think like what question they've never been asked before. I'm sure because of my background in studying fandoms, I would want to pick their brains into, what they think about the fandom phenomenon itself, right? Because that is something we've never seen before. And so the fact that they've been able to influence the fan base in this way, I just would love to know, like, what are their favorite things that they've seen that the fan base has done, because it really is incredible what they do, because just as powerful as BTS is, the fandom is itself powerful too. So yeah, it's really incredible.
And you've been connecting with these fans online and probably in person as well. What kind of stands out to you? Are the people who, what really kind of that, the bottom line that you get from this phenomenon?
Yeah, I think it's fitting that we're having this conversation with ACDC, because, I've been saying for years, and I know other people have said this before, that organizations and companies should be paying attention to how fandoms run themselves, because there's just so much to learn. And ARMY is kind of this perfect example of how a fandom probably runs more effectively and impactfully than a lot of other professional organizations. For those who don't know much about ARMY and this fandom, they're probably the most organized fandom that currently exists. They're built upon these grassroots efforts, very similar to nonprofits. They're very passionate about BTS, took initiative to promote the group and raise awareness. They're BTS's biggest advocates, right? So they're socially aware and goal-oriented and understand their influence of using their powerful platforms, not just for BTS, but to make a difference beyond music, especially if they come together, right? And earlier this year, people might have heard of BTS and ARMY specifically because they made headlines after the group donated $1 million to the Black Lives Matter movement. But what was even more remarkable was how ARMY around the world followed BTS's lead and matched this 1 million in just a little over 24 hours. So, we here working with nonprofits, we know how difficult it is to achieve something like that, right? So it's pretty incredible. But I think too, what people might find interesting and is the fact that this isn't the first time that they've done that. Like, this is a fandom who's very philanthropic. They've contributed to over 700 fundraising and charitable efforts since 2015, right? So we've never seen a fandom make an impact on this level and on this scale before. And then I think on a last point, what's super cool for me and I think really unique is they've created this culture of kind of supporting each other and supporting members of their own community through common interests beyond music, right? So when we think of ACDC, you guys have a lot of programs that are geared towards educating and empowering and connecting the Asian and Pacific Islander community in Nevada. But we see these same exact missions and values in BTS fans, right? So the Army fandom, for instance, they provide free educational services and tutoring to students. They have translation services. They teach Korean courses to people who are interested in learning. And then they have these sub communities that almost serve like supports for people of different interests and different backgrounds. They're what we call fan bases. So, they're for people like other researchers. There's medical and healthcare professionals, lawyers, engineers, people who like to cook, and so forth. So they really strengthen this bond with each other, which I think is so unique. So this is an organizational structure that's kind of years in the making, and we have yet to see this really replicated in other fandoms.
Yeah, I think it's just so fascinating, to see people all over the world kind of come together with this unifying love for a band, but that it has kind of spread to becoming such a goodwill kind of ambassador in some way for the whole global music community, just starting from the love of this one band. So I find it amazing. And I think it's such an interesting topic. And I think Nicole will have much more, insights over into the future, into 2021, with, if you're a BTS fan, if you're a K-pop fan, I think, following her on her Twitter account, Research BTS, you'll get a lot of information for sure. So I want to thank all my guests, Nicole Santero. Again, if you want to follow her on her Twitter account, Research BTS. Also, thank you to BTS superfan, Laurencita Santos. Continue your passion, and also to Jaewon Jung for your insights as well. I appreciate you. And of course, keep uplifting the community in your own way. I know BTS has done that, and I'm sure that band will continue to do so. So if you have any comments and any questions, put it on our Facebook page here. Nicole will see it, and you can reach her directly as well. But thank you so much for watching this fun episode regarding BTS, a global phenomenon, and I'm sure there'll be one for many years to come. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
세상이 멈춰서 아무런 예고도 없이 꿈은 기다림을 몰라서 눈치 없이 와버렸어. 자국이 지워진 거리 여기 남아져 있는 나 혼자 가는 시간이 미안해 말도 없이 오늘도 비가 내릴 것 같아 흠뻑 젖어버렸네. 아직도 멈추질 않아 저 먹구름보다 빨리 달려가 그럼 될 줄 알았는데 나 겨우 사람인가 봐. 몹시 아프네 세상이란 놈이 지갑기 덕분에 눌러보는 먼지 쌓인 배감기 넘어진 채 청하는 엇박자의 춤 겨울이 오면 내 진짜 더 뜨거운 숨 끝이 보이지 않아 출구가 있긴 한가발이 되지 않아 잠시 두 눈을 감아 여기 내 손을 잡아줘 미래로 달아나자 I could in the forest 하늘 갔다 나오겠지 아무 일도 없던 듯이 Yeah, life goes on like an arrow in the blue sky 또 하루도 나다겠지 On my pillow, on my table Yeah, life goes on like this again 이 음악을 빌려 너에게 나 전할게 사람들은 말해 세상이 다 변했대 다행히도 우리 사이는 아직 여태 안 변했네 늘 하는 시작과 끝 안녕이란 말로 오늘과 내일도 함께 이어보자고 멈춰있지 마 어둠에 숨지 마 빛은 다 떠오르니까 끝이 보이지 않아 출구가 있긴 한가 like an echo.